Hey, what's up? It's Deanna. So I found this on eBay and I collect all sorts of antiques, anything that's old. And I saw this antique photo album on eBay and I bought it. Like the seller had just like a few pictures of random photos that were contained in this album and just like a photo or two of the cover of the album. And I bought it on a whim. And when I opened up the album, I mean, it's pretty tattered, as you can see here, and it has a few names scattered around in the index. And when I saw this picture, and this picture really like intrigued me for some reason. Did you ever see like a photo of somebody and they look familiar to you and you don't know why? Well, I kept staring at this photo and I was like, I don't know, I know this person. How do I know this person? And then it dawned on me. She looks just like Lizzie Borden. And I was like, could this be Lizzie Borden? And I know Lizzie Borden was from Massachusetts. And 90% of these cards, most of them do not have names identifying the people in the album. But I'd say about 90 to 95% of the cards in this book are actually from Massachusetts. So Lizzie was from Massachusetts as well. And if you don't know who Lizzie Borden is or was, I believe in the 1880s, sometime around there, Lizzie Borden was actually the daughter of a very wealthy businessman, and Mr. Borden was pretty much a miser bag, actually. So this guy was worth millions upon millions of dollars, and he lived very frugally. So generally back then, millionaires would live in really wealthy areas, and he lived, instead of the wealthy area in Massachusetts, he chose to buy a house in pretty much like a middle-class neighborhood. And Lizzie actually was not happy about that. She wanted to live a more lavish lifestyle. Now, when Lizzie was a little girl, her mother died when she was very young. I believe her mother died sometime in the 1860s. Her father, Mr. Borden, remarried. And so Lizzie had a stepmother. I forgot her name. The stepmother and Lizzie did not like each other. Lizzie refused to even call her stepmom. She did not want to even admit that that woman was her stepmother. So the story goes something like this. So one day Lizzie was at home. The maid was there. The father was at work. Now, apparently Lizzie said the stepmother was visiting a sick relative, that she had left a letter on the kitchen table saying that she left for the afternoon to go visit a relative who was sick, and the father was at work. Well, the maid was outside, I believe, near the barn, and all of a sudden Lizzie came running out screaming on the top of her lungs, "Father's dead, father's dead." And the maid ran inside the house and found Mr. Borden slumped over on his couch with his face totally bashed in, like caved in. And he was like sitting there in a pool of blood with half his face caved in and like missing. And then apparently, I don't remember who went up the stairs, if it was Lizzie or if it was the maid. And the stepmother was found on the floor, like she was making the bed, and she was on the floor and found with her head bashed in as well. It looked like she had taken a hatchet, or somebody had taken a hatchet to the father and the stepmother and just smashed their head in multiple times. And so there was a big sensation. So now everybody thought that Lizzie was the one that murdered her father and murdered the stepmother, because she was angry because the father pretty much, like, he could afford to give her whatever she wanted, but he was so frugal that she lived sort of like a middle-class lifestyle. And it was said that Lizzie was so angry at her father's cheapness that she would go to the local department stores and shoplift, and they would send her father the bill. And back then it was an embarrassment if anybody, it was to the reputation that it was an embarrassment if your family member was a shoplifter. So the father would secretly pay the bills. And so apparently she was not happy with the fact that the father was a cheapskate. And she apparently was accused of killing him. Now, there was a sensational trial. Now, back then, even today, there's not too many women that are murderers or murderesses. And so she was, accused of murdering them. And it turned out that she was acquitted. So now this entire trial was followed all over the country and all over the world. It was in the newspaper. It was sensationalized. Now, after the father died, excuse that noise in the background. I'm getting notifications on my computer. She ended up inheriting her father's millions of dollars, her and her sister, and both of them were spinsters. They never got married. She bought a mansion in the right side of town. So she bought a mansion in the home that she always wanted, in the area that she always wanted, and lived a lavish lifestyle. And so now I'm thinking that this is Lizzie Borden. Now, if you see that little mole on the right side of the cheek, that's actually not a mole or a beauty mark. That's just a smudge from the ink. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you a real picture of Lizzie Borden. And I'm going to show you my photo side by side in comparison. And I really believe this could be Lizzie Borden. Now, if it is, this is an amazing find that I just found on eBay. But if not, it is what it is. But you tell me in the description below, do you think this is Lizzie Borden? Hang on one second while I get the side-by-side comparison photo to show you. So here's my photo. My photo is on the left, and the photo on the right is a photo that I found of Lizzie Borden on the internet. And as you can see, they look like one and the same person. Now, I could be wrong, but I could be right. And if I'm right, this is a real significant find, because it would be a photo that was never published before or seen by the public of Lizzie Borden. Now, it's amazing like how much the likeness is. Now, again, the photo on the right is the one I found of Lizzie on the internet, and the photo on the left is my photo. You can see like the indentation above the lips, the little crease to the side of her nose going down to the corner of her mouth is the same on both pictures. The eyebrows are very similar. The hair with the part down the center. So I don't know. Now here's the photos flipped. So my photo is on the right. And again, the one I found on the internet of Lizzie is on the left. And I would really, really, really find this quite interesting if I actually did unearth an unknown Lizzie Borden photo, and just on eBay by buying a random photo album that I found. That would be really, really cool. And now I'm going to show you the rest of the photos that were in the album, and so you can see who was part of this family. Now, if you're a Lizzie Borden fan and you recognize any of the people in this album, please write it in the comments below. And stay tuned while I get that album open to show you. Okay, so I'm going to show you the photos. Now, what's really cool again, Lizzie was from Massachusetts. And on the backs of these photos, almost every single photo that I found in this album, except for this one, mentioned that it was from Massachusetts. So the photo studios were Massachusetts, and all the photos were taken in Massachusetts, except for this one. This one, I believe, is General Tom Thumb and his wife, Livonia, I think her name was. And they actually were in Barnum and Bailey, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, and they were freaks. So they were considered part of a freak show, and they made Barnum very, 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 very famous and wealthy. Actually, General Tom Thumb over here on the left was like, pretty much like everybody wanted to see him because this was an anomaly. Not too many people seen little people before. And so during the time, everybody, thousands and thousands and thousands of people flocked to see General Tom Thumb. And Barnum, he was known for saying, a sucker is born every minute, because he pretty much suckered people into going to his shows. He had like these freak shows and acrobatic shows, and he suckered them into paying millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to see his shows. And that cracks me up. So here's the people that are in the album. Again, I don't know if that is Lizzie Borden. If it is, then this is probably her family members or friends. Now, the photo on the right appears to be a Civil War time frame photo. Now, a lot of times in these old albums, you'll see different decades all in one album. So people had, like if they got the album in 1880 or 1890, they'll put photos that they had from previous decades in the album. So you'll see a mixture of different decades in here. The one on the left and the one on the right, these photos look about 1870s, I'd say, or 1880s. And these are CDV photos. They're like little miniature cabinet cards. These appear to be 1870s, 1880 photos. Generally, this hairstyle was an 1870s hairstyle that women wore. Now these look like 1860s photo. This guy looks like he has an Abe Lincoln type of beard. And this may be his wife on the left. This guy looks like Abe Lincoln, doesn't he? And this looks like an 1860s photograph. So we have that beard, that famous beard that Abe Lincoln made very, very popular for that time frame. This lady looks like 1870s. Generally, you can tell the 1870s type of photos by the lace around the collar and the high neck on the dress. Again, these look like 1870s photos or 1880s photos. We have this gentleman here. He looks quite stern, doesn't he? And this lady here with a really cool looking hairdo. The photo on the left probably is about 1880s. And this one looks to be about the 1870s, maybe 1880s. Look at her jewelry, how cool that is. That looks like a book chain. They call that a book chain with a locket. And now we have some babies, probably about 1880s, 1890s. I could tell by the clothing. We have a little boy here. And a lady with beautiful, beautiful curly hair. You can see the long tendrils. And more children. We have a baby on the left here. And a little girl on the right. And these look like 1890s photos. This is another way of telling an 1880, 1890s photo. Generally, the 1860s photos and the very early 1870s photos had the name of the studio on the backs of the cards. But sometime in the 1880s and on, the names of the studios were generally on the fronts of the cards. And if they were on the back, it would be much larger font than the 1860s one, which had teeny tiny little logos on it. Wow, that lady has a really cool hairstyle. My dog just decided to walk in the room. So if you hear a bell, that's from the bell around his collar. He wears a bell around his neck because he always gets into trouble. And I have to know where he is at all time. Now, apparently there's a name, I think, what's that say? His second wife, somebody's second wife. And maybe it's this person's second wife. It says Micaiah Rilshi. I can't even read that. Someone's great grandfather and Tom something. I can't read what this says. I hate that because a lot of times you want to try to identify the people in these albums and the handwriting is just awful. Maybe he was a doctor, whoever wrote that. Who knows? And we have these people. This looks like 1880s, 1890s. And we're coming to a close of this album soon. We have this gentleman here. If you see those little black dots that's actually mold, like mildew from age. So like if the home this was kept in was humid and moist, you know, the air was moist, it would leave like these little dots on it because it was mold that would just build up on these old photographs. And this is New Hampshire. Actually, predominantly the photos in here are Massachusetts. There are one or two scattered New Hampshire photographs in here. And we have this little baby here. And this lady here, this looks like 1880s, perhaps 1890s. And last but not least, we have these two people here. This gentleman and this lady. And I don't know if there's any more photos. There isn't. And that's the conclusion of this album. Now, if anyone knows if this is Lizzie Borden in this album, please get back to me and let me know. I mean, I could be wrong, but this really, really, really looks like Lizzie. This would be historically significant if this was Lizzie. And I would like treasure this album even more so because what a story. If you look up Lizzie Borden and you've never heard of her before, please do Google it and you'll be intrigued by the story of this lady. It was absolutely riveting. So once again, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. And stay tuned. If you like antiques and old things and whatnot, check out my channel. Like, hit the subscribe button, and you'll see a little bell next to the subscribe button. Choose the bell as well, and choose the all notifications. And so whenever I put a new video on, you'll get to see it. Thanks for watching.